Here we go, the next presenter. I now request Raymond Ade Samuel to present an article in Public Health under the topic Knowledge, Attitude and Practice of Infant and Child Feeding Practice Among Caregivers in Ekiti State in Nigeria. I warmly welcome Raymond Ade Samuel for presenting the article.
Thank you very much. I'm presenting on knowledge, attitude, and practice of infant and young child feeding practices among caregivers in Ekiti State, which is a state in southwestern Nigeria. By the way of introduction, we all know that lack of nutritional knowledge usually leads to poor practice and will eventually result in serious harm, such as malnutrition and various non-communicable diseases, which may not show at the initial stage or early stage of life, but may be reflecting later in life. The knowledge of our caregiver, we all know, plays important role in the maintenance of nutritional status of the children and protection of their nutritional needs to ensure sound foundation and secure future of an healthy society. As we all know that it's an healthy citizen that can actually contribute to an healthy society. And so actually to get this done, there is the need to actually prepare the children nutritionally right from the foundation. The current National Nutrition and Health Survey that was conducted in 2018 reported more indices show that global acute malnutrition, moderate acute malnutrition, and severe acute malnutrition affect 5.3%, 4.5%, and 0.8% respectively among the under 5 in Ekiti State. The statement of the problem, the same report stated that the prevalence of underweight and stunting among children less than 5 years was 2.9% and 20.8% respectively. Although about 83.7% of children 0 to 23 months were ever breastfed, while only 14.7% were breast within the first hour of birth, indicating that more than 80% of them are not introduced to early initiation of breast milk. And we all know that if a baby is not, or a child is not introduced to breast milk early enough, there is possibility of actually throwing away colostrum, which is an important part of breast milk. Following the same trend, 20.7% of children 6 to 23 months had minimum dietary diversity, 34.7% had minimum meal frequency, while only 8.9% had minimum accepted diet, which indicates that complementary feeding practices is always an issue, which might be part of the reasons why the stunting rate in the state is as high as 20.8%. Nutrition education and counseling is part of the healthcare delivery services in all primary healthcare centers across the states, and each of the political ward has at least one TWCS center. So what this is saying is that Ekiti State has 177 political wards, and each of the ward there is at least one primary healthcare center. However, the poor under 5 nutrition indices as reported by National Nutrition and Health Survey put a question mark on the knowledge of the caregiver as well as the proper and adequate utilization of counseling and nutrition education they receive during antenatal and child welfare clinics. What are the methods that were adopted in carrying out the studies? The design had 3-stage sampling technique, which was used purposive, lottery, and random system. The assessment was cross-sectional using quantitative and qualitative method of data collection. And we used FAO guideline for assessing nutrition-related 5 structured questionnaire. And equally, the sample size was determined using the equation developed by Cochrane in 1963. And through this, 520 households in 177 LGs across the 16 LGs were surveyed. 3 households per political ward were picked and interviewed. The household survey data was collected using AP Info software and later transferred to MS Excel for cleaning. The differences in the world were statistically compared using Fire and Kramer's statistics for categorization of the variables. The multivariate regression analysis of binary variable depicts the association between the background characteristic and the variable through generation of adjusted odd ratio, and the attendant p-value was actually involved. Then what are the results? After the studies, it was discovered that 94.3% of the caregivers actually provide breast milk for their children on demand. And we know that breastfeeding on demand is also very important. It's a non-nutritive benefit. For example, during breastfeeding, there is skin-to-skin contact between the mother and the newborn, which definitely helps the newborn to regulate their body temperature and blood glucose, according to Anderson et al. 2003. That means that giving breast milk on schedule or breastfeeding on schedule has a very important role to play in infant and young child feeding. Also, studies have shown that newborn stomach are very small, we all know. Because breast milk is easily digested, hence they eat frequently. And WHO recommended that a newborn should be breastfed between 8 and 12 times a day. And this was actually substantiated by Donor 2012. Then another important point there was breastfeeding comfort. You know, when the mother is not actually comfortable, breastfeeding becomes an issue. But according to the study, the caregivers can actually breastfeed maybe in the presence of the extended family, and I think 3.4% of them, 34% of them actually agree that they breastfeed on comfort. Then I went further to explain that breastfeeding in public will be a source of embarrassment, stigmatization, and discomfort for the mother. The result of this study revealed mothers are comfortable breastfeeding their babies in the presence of different categories of people, which include their extended family. However, Nolan et al. Reported that women consider breastfeeding in public as acceptable in places that provide them with some degree of privacy. So that means if a mother actually gets a place that is comfortable for them, they could actually practice breastfeeding, which is another important index in infant and young child feeding. We also look at the place of delivery. Does it actually have effect on infant and young child feeding according to the knowledge and practice of the mothers? And 58% of them deliver in a facility. And studies have shown that postnatal counseling and exclusive breastfeeding is an important factor for increasing exclusive breastfeeding practices, according to 2014. Healthcare delivery institution has been adjudged as a good source of information about infant and young child feeding practices for caregivers, according to 2018. So probably because 58% of them actually delivered their babies in that facility, there's every possibility that maybe counseling provided by health workers at that level will have contributed to their knowledge about infant and young child feeding. So we look at delivery assistant. 11% of the caregivers interviewed says midwives actually deliver them when they were put to bed. And it was affirmed that caregivers whose births were attended to by midwives were more likely to breastfeed for 6 months or more compared to mothers whose births were attended by obstetrician. This is a confirmation of the report of Usman in 2015 that nurses, midwives are more attentive and have more control over the nutritional counseling, education, and promotion received by mothers. So to say that the category of health workers that attend to them during delivery plays an important role during breastfeeding. Then the delivery type, whether CS or natural delivery. And from the study, it was discovered that 84% of the mothers had natural delivery. And what is the relevance of natural delivery to exclusive, to infant and young child feeding? Findings have shown that planned C-section are associated with reduced breastfeeding success in the first 4 postpartum months when compared to vaginal births. Also, Brown and Jordan 2013 reported that in their study that women who delivered through C-section had more problems with latching, positioning, more pains when compared to women with vaginal birth. So this is showing that when a mother has a normal delivery, there is every tendency that they will breastfeed normally compared to those that has a C-section. And another important point there is about 47.2% of the mother had skin-to-skin contact with their baby. And according to some findings, skin-to-skin care increases oxytocin significantly, and this in turn promotes maternal newborn attachment, assists the newborn to transit to postnatal, and reduces maternal and newborn stress. This is according to Barkley 2014, Moore et al. 2012. And it has also been reported that the basic biological need is met, neuroprotective mechanisms are activated, self-regulatory behavioral are enabled early when newborn is placed skin to skin with the mother. So that is showing that skin to skin contact between the mother and the child actually improves infant and young child feeding. Then next to that is first breastfeeding after delivery. 65% of the mothers says they introduce their baby to breastfeeding immediately after birth. And sustainable optimal breastfeeding and exclusive breastfeeding practices are attained through timely initiation of breastfeeding. We all know the importance of early initiation. And findings have shown that when initiation of breastfeeding is delayed, there is a biological possibility which could lead to chronic illness because of importance of breastfeeding in the enhancement of immune function during the early stage of life. This is according to Victoria 2016 and Takashi 2017. Then child first birth after delivery, 41.3% of the mothers said they give child first birth within first hour of birth. The recommendation time for newborn first birth ranges from 12 hours after birth to 24 hours, according to Breastfeeding Initiative 2016, Kola 2014, Lipka et al. 2012, and Pre et al. 2013. However, this is not possible as a result of cultural reason. Mating is recommended to be delayed at least 6 hours after birth to allow for transition to extrauterine life of the neonatal, thereby supporting mother-newborn bonding and early breastfeeding. So what this is telling us is that normally the child first birth should be delayed for the mother and the baby to have a kind of bonding which will help initiation of breastfeeding. Then another IYSF practice that was examined by the study is giving of colostrum. 80% of the mothers interviewed said they give their first babies, the baby's first meal is colostrum. Colostrum plays important roles in making newborn healthy. Part of the roles include helping babies fight infection because about 2/3 of the cells in colostrum are white blood cells that guard against infection. So colostrum is important, and the mothers are actually aware of the importance of colostrum, and so 80% of them actually give their baby colostrum after immediately after birth. Another CF practice that is common is squeezing out and throw away of the first milk, which is colostrum. But 88% of the mothers interviewed said they don't throw away colostrum. According to Bailey and Jane 1999, colostrum is a thick and bright yellow milk secreted in the first 3 to 6 days after birth. Colostrum is viewed or perceived negatively as religiously forbidden milk, as revealed by a study conducted in Turkey. So this may be the reason why mothers are actually squeezing out colostrum. But where this study was conducted, 88.8% of the mothers actually say they don't throw away colostrum. Then what are the reasons for colostrum squeeze out, hot and dry? So very little numbers of the mothers actually say they throw away colostrum, and they give reasons for squeezing out. According to Aglia and Aspa 2021, they reported that creation in rate of colostrum and others be attributed to different cultural practices and beliefs, socioeconomic status, and healthcare service utilization, among other reasons. Unlike previous studies where marital status, which ranges as husband support, maternal occupation, and mode of delivery, were reported to be factors or reasons for throwing away colostrum or discarding colostrum. But here, the little numbers of the mothers that actually testified to throwing away colostrum said hot or dry may be the reason why such was done. Then the first drink before breastfeeding, which is another IYSF practices, majority of them, I mean, some of them say they give glucose to the baby, about 35% of them. Glucose and sugar water, and plain water has been reported through previous studies to be the common type of pre-lactive feed used by mothers. There could be so many reasons why this is done. Maybe the breast milk is not coming out early enough, and for the baby not to be starved, the glucose are introduced. But this is very low. Where this study was conducted, about 35% of them actually say they give glucose. But this practice is contrary to WHO recommendation for exclusive breastfeeding. So we can say that among the population that was studied, about 35% of them did not actually practice exclusive breastfeeding. Then why breastfeeding was stopped, which is another IYSF practice that was examined, about 43% of them said their husband actually asked them to stop breastfeeding. Many reasons have been adduced to cessation of breastfeeding by mothers, and this include lactation, infant nutrition, and weight. The need to take medicine or illness and milk pumping has been attributed as one of the reasons why breastfeeding was stopped. Furthermore, education level of the mother, pre-parity, perceived low milk quantity, and return to work were also mentioned in previous studies. But here in this study, they said their husband, their husband actually want them to stop breastfeeding, were the reason why some of them actually stopped. Then exclusive breastfeeding practices, some of them said it is very good. About 78% of them adduced to the importance of exclusive breastfeeding. Like I said, more than 70% of the response were, exclusive breastfeeding is good for their children. This is higher than 55% reported by 2008. This result is in line with previous studies conducted by Ojong and Chukwudeze 2019 in southern Nigeria. Then another knowledge that was actually tested is to ask the mother whether a child can get diarrhea from using feeding bottle, and 68.2% of them answered in the affirmative that conventional bottle feeding method has been identified and hence become an important topic because it can be a source of problem for both the breastfed and bottle-fed babies. Part of the disadvantage of using feeding bottle is the risk of gastrointestinal infection, and and diarrhea. And according to WHO 1991, babies who are bottle fed are 2.8 times more likely to develop gastrointestinal infection than those who are exclusively breastfed. The implication of this is that majority of the mothers actually know that their children can get diarrhea from using feeding bottle, so they desist from using such. Then the last IYCF that was observed is appropriate age for semi-solid and solid food introduction. As we all know that complementary food should be introduced at 6 months. So 88.3% of the mothers actually agreed that the time to introduce complementary food should be between 5 and 9 months. And it has been reported that the variation in the rates, World Health Organization recommended that exclusive breastfeeding should be practiced for babies between over the first 6 months of life and continue to 2 years, while complementary food will be introduced at 6 months. Various evidences have indicated the timing of commencement of complementary food among other factors, which include type of complementary food and timing of the health outcome assessment. These are the IYCF practices and the responses of the mother. The conclusion now. 2 main conclusions should be drawn from the assessment of the survey. First, there is a high level of knowledge among the caregivers. This implies that the awareness was significant and high level of knowledge. Secondly, there was a substantial improvement in some of the infant and young child practices, such as schedule of breastfeeding, skin contact with baby after delivery, first meal, squeezing out colostrum, EDF to 6 months, and timely introduction of our complementary feeding practices. Now, what are the recommendations? First, nutrition education on infant and young child feeding should be incorporated in all facility activities that brings the caregiver in contact with health workers. Such contacts include antenatal, postnatal, child welfare, immunization clinic, community outreach, and follow-up visits. Also, rather than giving out instruction alone during these clinics, there should be contact between health workers, and the health workers should turn this contact to the opportunity, and they should adopt more interactive strategies which allow target beneficiaries, which are caregivers now, to discuss most especially among themselves and obtain social support from health workers. There is the need for a strong SBC, that is a social behavioral and communication strategy that targets cultural, societal, and environmental factors and influences their behavior that is contrary to proper IYCF practices. Thirdly, third recommendation now, influencers such as husbands, mothers, and father-in-law should be incorporated in SBCC strategies, because from this research, it has shown that they play an important role in infant and young child feeding practices. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Raymond Ade Samuel. I'm having any presenters having questions, please post your questions in the chat box so that I can ask Mr. Raymond Ade Samuel. Now we are opening the polls for the presenter, Mr. Raymond Ade Samuel. And Mr. Samuel, I received one question from the participant side. Can you please clarify the difference between a caregiver and the mother in this context?
Thank you very much. A mother is actually an individual that gives birth to a baby. He also can be classified as a caregiver. But a caregiver primarily might not be the biological mother of the baby, but whoever takes care of that baby at that point in time, which could be an aunt, it could be grandmother, it could be cousin, it could be anybody that takes care of a baby at that point in time to be referred to as a caregiver, which may not necessarily be a mother. But a mother can as well be categorized as a caregiver.
Thank you so much. And I receive another question. Please clarify between breastfeeding on schedule and breastfeeding on demand. What are the advantages, if any difference?
Actually, breastfeeding on a schedule, there is a difference between breastfeeding on schedule and breastfeeding on demand. Breastfeeding on demand means whenever the baby actually wants to breastfeed. While on schedule means that maybe a mother might have a kind of mindset or a kind of structure that a baby should be breastfeed twice or 3 times a day, which is a kind of a schedule. But for on demand, it's anytime a baby actually wants to be breastfed. So there is a clear difference between breastfeeding on schedule and breastfeeding on demand.
Thanks for answering, Mr. Raymond. Dear participants, please poll for Mr. Raymond on the topic of knowledge, attitude, and practice of infant and young child feeding practice among caregivers in Ekiti State in Nigeria. I received one more question, Mr. Samuel. What is the key take-home message for caregivers on infant and child feeding?
The key take-home is that infant and young child feeding can basically be divided into 2: exclusive breastfeeding and complementary feeding. Exclusive breastfeeding should be promoted, one. Then colostrum, which is part of the exclusive breastfeeding, should be given to a baby. There should be a kind of nutritional education on this. Then, as far as complementary feeding is concerned, it should be timely and it should be adequate. That means all the necessary nutrient or ingredients should be included in complementary food to prevent malnutrition types such as underweight, stunting in a child. And we all know that if a child is malnourished between the first 2 years, it actually presents a kind of great problem in the nearest future. So the take home is that exclusive breastfeeding, infant and young child feeding should be a basis of counseling, and that should be promoted as every contact the health workers or the mothers have at the health facility level. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Samuel. I have another question, I think so. What is the take-home message for a family doctor like myself? It's asked by John.
Well, as a family,
what is the take-home message for a family doctor like myself?
Yes, what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say, in essence, as a family doctor, we should all join hands in promoting good IYCF knowledge for the mothers. We all know that the mothers don't know much about all these things. So I think it is our role, it is part of our role and responsibility as health worker, whether a doctor or a nurse or whatever category of health workers now, to promote and actually engage in a kind of nutrition education that will enable the mothers to understand the concept and the reasons why IYCF is important, especially at the earlier part of child's age. Over.
You have another question, Mr. Samuel. Did you explore the knowledge of surrogate breastfeeding in the study?
Not at all. Not at all. Okay. It was basically for a caregiver, and in the course of carrying out the survey, no surrogate mother was actually encountered.
Okay, you have another question here. Should HIV-positive mothers be encouraged to practice inclusive breastfeeding?
Of course, yes. In fact, there is a WHO standard that says HIV mother can breastfeed exclusively, but the HIV mother must be on antiretroviral drug, and they can breastfeed up to 4 months. They can practice exclusive breastfeeding up to 4 months. Most importantly, they must be on their drug, and they must stop at 4 months. Probably thereafter, the baby may be coming out with teeth which could cause another problem. But basically, there is a WHO guideline that states that a mother, an HIV-positive mother, can exclusively breastfeed their children up to 4 months. But importantly, they must be on their antiretroviral drug.
I have another question, like have personally counseled a father whose wife's breasts were engorged and could not successfully breastfeed child to help suck the breast and soften it for the baby to latch on. Could this be an alternative for women who are having such issues at the birth of their child for the husband to help out? I will be willing to collaborate on any research to further on this alternative. It's written by Rachel Titus.
I couldn't get that question quite well, please.
Okay, you can see the chat box also, and you can contact
Okay,
me for
let me just give me a moment. Let me read through.
Yeah, please.
Counsel as a father.
It's not like a question, it's like an interaction between creating some interaction. So you can contact Ms. Rachel later on also. And I received one more question for you. What about a return of food preparation session at the infant welfare clinic?
Okay, I think for the first question, the best thing to do when a breast is engorged, one is to find a means of expressing the breast milk, which could be painful though, but definitely the breast milk concealed in the breast must be expressed. The husband can actually assist the wife to maybe suck out, or breast milk pump can be used. And this breast milk can actually be extracted manually. And if this is done, though, like I said, it could be painful, but after this is done, it will actually help a mother to breastfeed better. Then on the second question, which has to do with demonstration, food demonstration session in the clinics, is supposed to be an important aspect of child welfare clinic, where mothers actually taught, or where they actually demonstrated on how to prepare complementary food. But unfortunately, in most of the child welfare clinic in sub-Saharan Africa, this is dumbly done. It is rarely done. And I think this is the reason why our IYCF indices is actually coming down, most especially those that has to do with complementary feeding. If this is resuscitated, because I believe in most of the health facility, demonstration session is completely dead. If this is resuscitated, it will go a long way to actually improve our IYCF indices. But it's known that food demonstration is one of the cogent or important child welfare activities that are supposed to be done at the health facility level. And if it is resuscitated, like I said, it will go a long way to improve our IYCF indices. Thank you.
From results. I have another question, Mr. Samuel. Who UNICEF recommendation for initiation of breastfeeding is within 1 hour of birth? What would the health facility rate of 58.8% from results mean? Kindly help clarify this area.
Okay, what actually implies that the 58.8% of the mother interviewed actually initiated breastfeeding within the recommended time of our WHO, which is between 30 minutes and 1 hour after birth. That means 58.8% of the mothers interviewed actually practiced early initiation of breast milk. That means they complied with the recommendation of WHO that recommended that between 30 minutes and 1 hour breastfeeding should be initiated.
Thank you so much for answering all the questions received from the presenter side. And I would like to inform you that can you share your email ID in the chat box? So if anybody having any doubts or something, they can email you and you can answer also.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Raymond Ade Samuel, for the wonderful topic presentation today in TWS 8th conference.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.